Hello, you're watching UATV's Head to Head, and this is Vivica Williams. Ukraine's IT sector has become well known across the world, and I thought this would be a great time for us to talk about the U.S. market. So joining us today is Michael Buryk. He is a third-generation Ukrainian American who helps Ukrainian companies enter the U.S. marketplace. Michael, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So I wanted to start off asking, you work with Ukrainian startups in the U.S. Why did you start doing this?
Well, I've been an active member of the Ukrainian American community here for over 40 years in various capacities and various organizations. And since Ukraine became independent in 1991, I decided I would like to get more involved in helping Ukrainian companies on a global basis to try to reach new markets. And so I interviewed four Ukrainian startup companies, Heidi's, Echo is Me, Jubal, and AgriEye, with the intention of trying to understand better what's going on in the Ukrainian market for startups and to try to become more familiar with their activities here in the U.S. And so I had an opportunity to interview them. I wrote an article about it for the Ukrainian Weekly, which appeared in the April 28th edition. And I'm hoping to continue my podcast series on Ukrainian tech startups.
So what did you learn about companies in the U.S. market?
Well, a couple of things. Frankly, I was surprised at how some of the tech startups now are really trying to move out from strictly focusing on the Ukrainian market. For example, Heidi's has established itself now, or is beginning to establish itself here in the U.S. They've actually incorporated in Delaware to help sell and market their product here in the U.S. Heidi's is basically a cybersecurity company, and also is active in the field of identity management, personal identity management, as well as enterprise identity management. And so now they have a director of business development located here in the U.S. who will actually be going out to hospitals and small to medium-sized companies to try to sell their application.
And what did you find out from them about their trials or issues with getting into the U.S. market?
Well, I think, the U.S. market in cybersecurity, although cybersecurity is an extremely hot field globally, it's fairly crowded here now with some of the major players like Google and Microsoft and so forth. So I think one of the challenges that Heidi's is going to experience here is how does it position itself vis-a-vis some of these other major players to position itself with a unique value proposition, particularly with the enterprise market here, for example, with the hospitals. How are they going to be different?
And what advice? So you help with some consulting for some companies as well, correct?
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is very basic at this point. For Ukrainian tech startups coming here, I'll give you one example. I was at an event 2 weeks ago from Razum IT. The organization Razum, which of course started after the Maidan in Kyiv in 2014, has an organization worldwide that also is trying to help Ukrainian tech companies. And so they had an event in conjunction with another organization in New York about 2 weeks ago. And there were several Ukrainian startups invited to present what we would call, the elevator pitch. It's a very succinct presentation to a panel of venture capitalists. And I think one of the problems that came out behind these was that there was one gentleman on the panel who was very critical, talking about specifically their technology and how it worked and how it is different and so forth. And so I think one of the things they really have to hone in on is making sure that they're able to sell and market their products to tech types, to directors of IT and so forth in these companies. And for that, it can be challenging for someone who might not have a technology background to go out and talk to tech IT folks and directors of technology and so forth. So I think that has to be honed and polished a bit.
So, and was you seeing the advantages that Ukrainian companies have in the U.S. market in general, tech companies?
That's a good question. I think the advantage that they bring is they can point back to the market in Ukraine and the level of education, of technology education among Ukrainian software developers and hardware developers and so forth. For years, Ukraine has competed on the outsourcing market globally and has been very successful with that. And I think when Ukrainian tech companies come to the U.S., they should really point to that and explain how tech companies are now trying to produce their own products using their own high level of expertise that they've already developed on the outsourcing market over the years. So I think that's one of the competitive advantages, that they have very well trained people, both developers and hardware people.
That's an excellent idea that even I hadn't thought about, is to market that background of being an outsourcer and now being a main producer. Can you tell us about any other companies that you worked with that really struck you as unique?
Yeah, another company that I interviewed for the podcast series is Echo Is Me, and they compete in the home energy slash smart home market. They have this small box that gets connected to the main electrical box in a home, in an individual home, because they actually don't work in apartment buildings at this point. And the purpose of the box is to monitor energy use by all appliances in the home, with the intent of being able to manage it, track it, and hopefully cut down on non-essential usage. They claim that the use of this device will yield the customer maybe a 50%, 15% savings on energy expenditure throughout a year. So it's kind of interesting, but again, it's a bit of a crowded market,
Right.
and they're going to have to differentiate their product in the marketplace here, both in the U.S. and also in Canada,
Uh-huh.
because there are one or two players up in Canada as well.
And you mentioned that you had a podcast. So what's this podcast that you have?
Well, I've been writing articles for years for the Ukrainian Weekly, which is the longest running Ukrainian American newspaper. It started in 1933. And I get articles published at least once or twice a year in there. And I decided I wanted to take just beyond the written word at this point and try to do something in an audio way, because I think it helps to expand what you're doing in a written article. And so for this article on Ukrainian tech startups that I called Made in Ukraine, I decided I would take the interviews that I'd recorded and actually make them into podcasts. And so that's up online on SoundCloud. And I think you have the link to that, and maybe you could display that later on. Um, they're short, 20 to 25 minutes, and they're interviews. My intention is to continue that series. I have plans to, for example, interview the Ukrainian Venture Capital Association. And also, what I want to do is talk to other Ukrainian tech startups to get a better handle on what their plans are, what their products are, and also to help to try to give them some exposure to the West, with the intention of hoping that maybe one or two of these companies will connect in a very successful way and become huge companies out here.
Wow. I'm very happy for the work you're doing. Thank you so much for this work. And thank you for trying to promote Ukrainian companies.
I'm glad to do it.
Well, thanks for joining us today, and hopefully we'll be back in touch with you to hear of some new developments in IT startup in the U.S. market.
Thank you so much. Do побачення.
Do побачення. And today we were talking with Michael Buryk about IT companies, Ukrainian IT startups, and entering the U.S. market. Thank you for watching.